If you want to win a whopping 8 V-Bucks, then all you have to do is watch this entire video and you'll automatically be entered into this completely legitimate giveaway. Thank you. Dear Santa, for Christmas, I would like Fight Night Champion 2.
Fuck you say to me, you little shit! How are you not in fucking school? You kiss your mother with that mouth? It's called you kiss your mother with that fucking mouth?
It's been 3,000 days plus since we've had a boxing game hit our consoles. It has also been 3,000 days since I've had a girlfriend. The last decent boxing game we got was Fight Night Champion, which came out in 2011. Fun fact, did you know that Fight Night Champion inspired this professional boxer to become a boxer? But we haven't had a boxing game since then, and well, that's what we're talking about in this video. So without further ado, I will shut the hell up and let's just jump right into it.
Let's just jump into it.
So why haven't we got a boxing game in 3,000 days and still going? Well, mainly the biggest issue is licensing. Now a lot of you might be familiar with licensing and how it works, but for those who don't know, licensing allows you to use, well in this case, allows you to use boxers' likeness in the game and be able to sell it and make money off it. Now that wouldn't be a problem if all boxers were under one roof, but they're not. That means you have to go to individual boxers and managers in order to get licensing for the certain fighter. So for example, to put it in proper perspective, if you wanted some of the best boxers and best fighters in your boxing game, and you wanted, let's say you wanted Tyson Fury, you wanted Deontay Wilder, you wanted Floyd Mayweather, and you wanted Butterbean, then you would have to pay all 4 of them separately, and each one would demand their own price. Hello Floyd, thank you for coming here. We are making another boxing game called Fight Night Champion 2 and was wondering if you would be in it for a cool $12 million.
Yeah! 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 Yeah!
Now doing this for every boxer would cost a bomb, and it will be hard for developers to make a significant amount of profit, because what you're doing is saying, okay, we want these 8 boxers in our game, however we have to approach 8 different managers or 8 different fighters in order to get a price for them, and then we have to pay that price and then we can use them, and it just costs too much. Instead of going under one roof, you have to pay each and every single boxer or manager individually to use that fighter's likeness in your game, which just costs way too much money than if you used to buy it in bulks. So it's like if you wanted to buy 10 Snicker bars, right, and you pay £1 for each one, it would be cheaper and easier to buy a bulk of them and just get 10 in one for a cheaper price instead of buying one individually. That's kind of how the licensing works for boxing. I don't know why I use the Snicker analogy, but it works. So this issue alone is the main reason why developers don't go anywhere near boxing games and why EA even stopped making boxing games. Now speaking of EA, let's talk about them, shall we? Because that's not the only reason we haven't seen a boxing game in 3,000 days plus. The second reason is because of EA Sports. Now EA Sports were the kings of boxing games with the Fight Night series. However, in 2011, after Fight Night Champion, EA decided they would stop making Fight Night games because of licensing. Who loves Fight Night? Who wants another? Well, you're not getting one, you slags. I'm sorry about that. Therefore, EA moved over to a more profitable, Jesus, let me put my teeth back in, more profitable, oh my god, forget that word, sport, which was MMA, to make UFC games. So EA signed an 8-year contract in 2012 with the UFC to make 4 UFC games under that contract. The reason EA moved over to UFC was because of the fact that all fighters are under one roof, unlike boxing, so EA only have to pay for one license instead of going to individual fighters and asking them to use their if they could use their likeness, which also meant the profit margin would be wider, seeing as you have to pay for one license instead of 20 licenses. This also meant that they could absolutely milk Conor McGregor's likeness to sell their game. Ka-ching! And this also meant EA couldn't make a boxing game because they were under contract with the UFC now, and for 8 years they were under contract with UFC, so that meant they couldn't go back to boxing. So yeah, that's why pretty much the reason why you haven't seen more specifically a Fight Night game in 8 years, because EA signed a contract with the UFC for 8 years to make 4 UFC games, hence they couldn't make a boxing game alongside of that whilst they was under contract with the UFC, hence why you haven't seen Fight Night Champion 2 yet. Now, an honourable mention is that there was a brief period in time where boxing was dying out. People weren't watching as much, and there weren't that many big pay-per-views without Floyd Mayweather being in them. This is another reason EA claimed, I say claimed, why they stopped making boxing games. Because it's funny, EA were asked why they stopped making boxing games, and they said, oh, boxing games are actually dying out, so we didn't make a boxing game, that's why. But then they later on came out and said, actually, to be honest bro, I lied, it's about licensing. I just thought I'd throw that in there because I found it funny when I heard that. And this is also a reason why game developers stayed away from boxing. Boxing wasn't pulling in the same numbers as it once was, and this is also a reason why game developers stayed away from boxing. Boxing wasn't pulling in the same numbers as it once was, and it would be very, very, very risky for developers to make a boxing game when the sport was dying out and still pay a large amount for licensing. It was just a lot of risk involved with low yield attached to it. However, I'm not going to leave you completely hopeless. What do I look like an animal? Well, you don't know what I look like because you never see my face. But there are 2 boxing games in development as we speak for the consoles. These 2 are Hard Knock Nights and Round for Round Boxing. Round for Round, please let me play your game early. Please sponsor me and please let me play your game. Thank you. So to quickly recap, the reasons you haven't seen a boxing game in 3,000 days plus and still continuing is because number 1, licensing costs way too much money for boxing. It's just a mess to get every single individual boxer into your roster and pay a high amount for each individual boxer. Number 2, EA stopped making boxing games to focus on UFC, which was more profitable and had a bigger profit margin. I'm not saying UFC games are more popular and sell more than a boxing game. What I'm saying is because they only have 1 license to cover, UFC has a bigger profit margin than boxing. Number 3, boxing died out for a long time and only recently is it coming back to life, hence we're seeing these 2 games coming out soon on the console. So thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, ring them bell notifications. I'm sorry, I'm way too hyped. Until next time, I've been THEAR, put THEAR inside your heart. We are representing baby. Oh.